All right, guys. Tonight I have this beautifully prepared presentation on antioxidants.
Oh, that sounds so exciting.
Yeah. Well, when I talk about it, it is.
Oh, okay.
Except that over the last few days, something's just bugging me more than normal.
Oh.
I mean, it always bugs me, but it's just bugging me more than normal.
More than doing an intro for our podcast?
I don't mind that, actually.
You don't mind it?
I don't mind it.
We're just going right into it. They don't even know who we are.
Well, you got to set the hook before you do the intro.
Hook and then reel them in.
What are you, a rookie?
Yes.
Have you forgotten everything?
I forgot.
All right. I'm Charlie. Nature's Outlet. Last name's Ray. See, you got me out of my mojo.
Okay.
This is Dr. Pat Kennedy, chiropractor extraordinaire, and he's particular about introductions. This is John Rigdon. He is the nutrition geek. And this show is
The Doctor,
Within. Because the doctor in here is better than all those doctors out there. So anyway.
We did it.
My pet peeve.
Okay.
And tonight's topic, we'll call it, turn off the damn news.
No kidding.
I am so over it.
Yeah.
I've had it.
So is everybody else, but they still
I
turn
know.
the news on.
Wait,
because they're curious.
Are people still watching the news?
But
I guess so, because there are a lot of depressed people.
Freaking addicted to it.
Yeah.
So before I get into my rant, my proper rant that I've prepared and written down and
it's very
thought
good.
about. Yeah, no, this is good. It's like I used a good typeset and everything.
Yeah. It's usually, it's not all over the place too.
Right.
Like your brain
yeah,
works.
I can flip
It's
it.
like,
I even practice like I can flip it like that. And
wow.
It's right there.
I'm impressed.
Yeah. So anyway.
Have you turned the news off?
I had to stay focused on this long enough to get it done.
Well, it made a big difference.
Yeah, so I have no idea what's happened today.
Don't care.
Other than Cuomo's out. See that? I'm addicted to the news too, which is why I'm pissed.
You're addicted to TikTok.
I am pissed. Yeah,
Okay.
TikTok's kind of crazy. So, all right. So I wanted to open with a story, a personal story that illustrates kind of the effect of media. And we're all old enough. September 11th occurred.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember what you were doing? Everybody remembers what they were doing
Exactly.
when this occurred, right?
Yeah.
So where were you? Do you remember what you were doing?
Yeah, I never watched the news. And that particular morning, I was getting ready to drive to Martinsville, to the Martinsville clinic. And
So was I. I went to Martinsville that day. What a
Yeah.
coincidence.
And I just turned the news on, and I was like, why am I doing that? Because I was going to be late to work. And all of a sudden, I saw the tower, the first tower was on fire.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, okay, it's a movie. So I sat down on my couch and I watched the second plane hit. And I thought, this isn't a movie. I'm probably going to have to call the patients. And I started calling my wife and the kids and all that stuff. And it was gripping day.
Do you remember where you were?
Oh, yeah. It was ninth grade. I was in history class. And
As history was being made, so to speak.
Yeah. They had they brought in the TV, I'm kind of old, so you still had like the big TV and they
On
had
the
a cart.
He was in
They
ninth
wheeled
grade.
yeah.
Ninth grade.
They wheeled it in,
Yeah.
and
We'll
they
let
had
that
it.
go.
They had the one tower was on fire, and so I saw the second tower get crashed into as well. Crazy.
So I was talking with our producer Davis about my experience a little bit. So I was getting dressed, ready for work. I was going to Martinsville that day too, to go to my Martinsville store.
Mm-hmm.
And running late like you were, coincidentally. And I'm on the phone. Dad had called me about something. I don't remember what he was calling me about, but we're on the phone and I'm trying to scramble to get ready and the TV was on. And he's like, dude, did you see, the thing with the plane where the plane hit the tower? I was like, yeah, that's crazy. That second plane rounded the corner. And before it struck the building, my dad, who's got a military background, he's like, flatly, he's like, we're under attack. And what struck me was, well, first of all, the enormity of what was happening. But second was like how fast he processed what was happening compared to where I was. Because I'm like, what are the odds of two planes hitting a tower? Like, whoa. And he's like, we're under attack. So that was the actual event. So anyway, that's not the point of my story. Other than it was a big event, and we all remember where we were because it was it was a shaking thing. Mm-hmm. My wife and I had a trip planned a couple of days later. we were scheduled to go to Yellowstone. And so now we're thinking, okay, do we take this trip? Like, think about how people were feeling about flying on planes and all of this stuff. And we discussed it, and I'm like, probably the next 2 weeks will be the safest time in the history of the world to fly.
Right.
And we've been looking forward to this trip, and it's hard for you to get time off. Let's just do it. So we went. So the first thing was we got on the plane, little connector to, I think it was Atlanta maybe, and then you get on the big plane. We're the only two people on the plane.
Oh, wow.
And there's what's the politically correct term for the people that serve your...
Yeah, I know. They're called flight attendants.
Attendants,
yeah,
right.
You don't say stewardess.
Right.
Yeah, flight attendant.
Right. Happened to be a female. Just could have been old school, could have been new school.
Right.
Anyway, she sat down with us and gave us free drinks, and she drank with us. She's like, ain't nothing else to do. So I thought
She's drinking on the job.
She had a drink. I mean, and maybe she did, maybe she didn't. I don't want to get her in trouble, from years ago. So we get to Jackson Hole, and what was weird about that, this is not my main point, but it was really tense there.
In Jackson Hole?
Jackson Hole.
Damn.
And I got off the plane. We go in, and there are military people everywhere.
Yeah.
There are dudes with submachine guns and all of that stuff. And they're wanding everybody getting off the plane. I'm in there, and they're wanding me. And every time they go by I had hiking boots because we're going to Yellowstone and going hiking and stuff. And every time they wanded my boot, it beeped. And these guys circle in close.
Oh, boy.
And the one guy sort of makes a gesture, and I interpreted the gesture to mean maybe take off your shoe. So I reached down to not what he meant. And it's a weird feeling to have all of these military people train their gun on you. But that's what happened. And it's like, you want to talk about a stress response?
Yeah.
Holy ravioli. As it turns out, there was a metal stud in the carpet under my foot. And there was one of the boss guys used that as a training opportunity for all the guys. And he's like, first of all, don't be ambiguous with your gestures. Tell the guy what you're doing. And then the second thing is, there's metal studs under there. Be aware of that. So anyway, that's crazy. So that's how we arrived. Wow. Then we commenced on our trip, and the trip was awesome. We were out hiking, didn't have our phones, didn't have TVs in our lodge. Nothing. Felt like the coolest trip ever. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's weird how everybody thinks of September 11th as kind of this universally bad thing. But it created something that may not be duplicated ever again in Yellowstone, and that was because everybody canceled their vacations. We drove, there's that circle that goes around Yellowstone. We drove on that road for 45 minutes and never saw another car.
Wow.
And we would go to these tours, and they'd be like, expect to wait 2 hours and blah, blah, blah. We showed up, and the one guy's like, we can go now because you're all that's coming. So, I mean, the big geyser, Old Faithful.
Yeah.
There's 25 people there. 25 people. You're used to there's 25 people deep.
Yeah.
So we just had this kind of interesting experience.
Oh.
And we stayed on Jenny Lake, and it was just beautiful weather. And we didn't even turn on the radio in the car. So I read books. And we just hung out, and it was very calm. And it was like a 10-day trip. We were completely calm. And here's where this is the impact and the relationship with the media. What really got my attention. We left Jackson Hole. It wasn't crowded. It was pretty laid back. On the way back, we went to O'Hare. And when we landed and we stepped off the plane into the terminal at O'Hare, it was a wave of stress and tension. Mm-hmm. It was a physical, I could feel it physically penetrating my body. Mm. It was to this day, I'm like, that is such a distinct feeling. And I was looking around and just taking it in, and you would see like people just staring at the TV, and of course they're still running just endless loop of the plane hitting the building and all the mess and what does it mean and the speculation and the and just the on and on of it. But you could see like everybody was freaked out.
Yeah.
And we were just like, it was like we had just arrived from a different planet because we'd been having a different experience.
Mm-hmm.
Those people had been watching the news nonstop.
Right. Yeah. Well, everybody had during that week.
Yeah, sure.
And what it got me thinking about is this whole COVID mess. I mean, ever since it's been a year plus long. September 11.
Right.
It has been.
With no end in sight.
Yeah, there's still no... I mean, and yeah, it's...
Well, the invisible enemy is, the scariest, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and it's being, it's being worked.
It's being worked.
I mean, the news is what? It's, at the least cynical, it's a business. Mm-hmm. That's like probably the less cynical interpretation of it. But even as a business, they've learned things like, things that scare people pay more attention than things that are good, good news. Mm-hmm. People don't pay attention. People are dismissive.
They gotta stop calling it the news. It should be called the agenda.
Well,
because it's not news.
Right. And
We
you've
were
got
talking
different,
about that
different
earlier.
people with different agendas. I mean, when you're watching the news, like they're basically spoon feeding you a conclusion. Yeah. Like it's not like they're presenting information and different perspectives and letting you kind of make your own determination. I mean, that era of journalism is gone. I mean, it doesn't exist anymore. So sad. I just wanted to get into talking about like how like it's so pervasive that we don't think about how negative it is and how much damage it's doing. I think we do kind of superficially, but it's doing stuff to our brains. It's doing stuff to our minds. It's doing stuff to our psychology. Mm-hmm. It's doing stuff to our physiology. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's bad stuff. Yeah. And so I'm just like, turn off the damn news.
So you guys have seen the meme, I'm sure, and the audience too. There's this couple of Amish guys, with the real black hats and stuff like that. And there's a reporter there and saying, how come you guys seem to be like impervious to this COVID? Like you guys are not getting it. He said, why? We don't watch TV.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I looked at that, I was like, oh my gosh, it's like so true. Like it is really, I treat an entire Mennonite community, beautiful people. They really truly live in community. And when I'm there, I go into this one house, and then all the people from the community come to the house for the whole day, and they get treated, and it's a wonderful experience. But one mother might come in with 3 kids, and another one with some other kids, and so the one mother says, "Hey, I know you have to make an errand today. Do you want me to take your kids to the house?" And she's like, "Okay, sure." Like, they take care of each other's kids.
Right.
They, well, since you can't make dinner tonight, do you want me to bring dinner over? And, they talk to each other. They all share each other's burdens. They all share each other's victories. They're just living community. And it is the neatest thing. I go once a month, and I probably don't make a whole lot of money because I leave my office, which, does well, to go do this, but it's the world of good for me.
You look forward to that day, I guess.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I go there and it's just like, this is amazing, just hanging out with these people who, they're not worried about any of this stuff.
Right.
None of it. And they kept their school open. They kept their churches open. They haven't had this rampant COVID thing. Some people got some sinus stuff and some, the flu-like symptoms, and they're like, we're okay. We're okay. No problem. They don't watch TV.
Yeah.
And they enjoy life, and they make really good pies.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
they're
like
craftsmen. There's no doubt about it.
It's great.
They are skilled people.
Yeah.
So my mom's from Ohio, and there's a county, Holmes County, that's up there in the Amish area, and I think their vaccination rate currently is like 11%.
Yeah.
And they have a higher incidence of COVID, but I don't think that it's
No hospitalizations.
it's not a
and stuff.
high mortality rate. It's not a high. It's not this big terrible thing like you would think. Oh, those people aren't getting vaccinated, they must all be dead, like they're just stacking the bodies somewhere, but it doesn't seem to be the case. So anyway, yeah, the only thing more contagious than the virus would be the information about it.
Yeah.
So
Well stated.
but anyway, so I kind of did a little research on like, okay, so I don't like all this negativity. I'm wired as a positive person, but I want to dig in a little bit. And so what are some of the negatives of being addicted to the news? And I'll throw it out there because you guys can probably think about half of these, if not more.
I got a big one.
Go ahead.
It's a big one. So I remember a study that was done. Gosh, I was interning in Texas, and it was done at the Texas Children's Health Science Center in Houston, and it was basically with children with asthma, but they were analyzing before certain treatments. They were taking their blood and analyzing their immune system, so seeing their white cell count and all that stuff, and then they do a treatment of whatever source, and they were seeing 30 minutes later what was that response on the immune system. Well, they did everything. Acupuncture, massage therapy, herbs and, aromatherapy, injections, everything. It was really very exhaustive in their approach. But one of the things was when the children were watching a sad or depressed movie, their immune system was working 40% less efficient.
Wow.
It dropped 40%. So when they, you think about it, like if you're depressed and you're sitting at home and, going and taking a shower, you feel sick. It's like, get up, take a shower, put on your good clothes and, get going. Because if you just sit there, your immune system works 40% less.
Wow.
Yeah.
Then they watched funny movies. They were laughing and enjoying themselves, and their immune system was working 40% better than average. So if you're watching the news and you're taking all this in, look at the planes hitting the towers over and over and over again, and scared to death, and thinking, my kids were young at the time, and I was thinking, how am I going to protect my kids? We're being attacked. I don't have any guns. I don't even know how to use a gun. I don't know. I'm just a chiropractor, and I was thinking, and I was just watching. My immune system was working 40% less. But we stopped that, and we started going outside and, throwing the ball around and doing fun things. And we were fun because at least I understand the neurology of the brain. Was like, look, we got to stop this. Because if you want your immune system to work 40% better, turn the freaking TV off. Yeah. And one more thing, I know I'm not trying to steal a show, but just on average, the average person has 500 negative thoughts a day. And it's not, like, oh, I'm fat, or, it's just running in here. Mm-hmm. It's the average person, 500 negative thoughts a day. So you got this running in their back, on, and so we all kind of tease people who say, they stand in front of the mirror and go, "You are good."
The affirmation.
Right.
You are, pretty. You are, what?
And gosh darn it, I like myself.
Gosh darn it, I love myself. But you know what? There's something to that. Yeah. And it's because you got 500 negative inputs per day. You're gonna have to fight it with something positive. And one thing that I do every single morning, and I know it seems goofy, is I wake up in the morning and I make my bed right away. Because I heard a speech one time, and it's like, when I come home, and if I had a crappy day, and I'm taking my coat off and stuff, and I just put my pajamas on, I go, I made my bed.
Yeah, at least my bed's made.
And it looks good.
It gives you like, you start with a win. You start your day with a win, and it gives you a reminder that as bad as your day may have been, at least you had some control over your life.
Look what I did.
Right?
I made my bed and it looks good.
Well, it's funny. We were similar. We were at a trade show, and New Chapter, they had just done this big, expensive study, and they were trying to figure out what people get out of multivitamins. And, of course, people probably rightfully think that they're helping their health and it's nutritionally supportive. But the answer that surprised them was that people would answer, if I take my multivitamin in the morning, I know I didn't screw up my diet for the day. I at least did one thing right with my diet for the day. So they got their win. It's a similar idea. They got the win, right? So that's pretty similar. Yeah. But the news, I mean, it's, people get addicted to it. The first question I would have to ask is like, what are you really getting out of it, right? I mean, you're wasting a ton of time. And what are is it actionable? Okay, you got this information. Like, okay, you heard about, I don't know, there's this chaos in Portland or wherever, insert, Bosnia or whatever. What the heck are you going to do about that?
Right.
Okay, and how does it affect your life?
Yeah.
So, it's outside of your sphere of control. It's not actionable information. So what's the point, right? So it's a big distraction. It's a waste of time. Well, that is time that you are no longer, quote unquote, living your life. You are now less focused on your own life, and you're focused on external stuff that, in many cases, is probably largely fictionalized anyway.
That's a good point, Charlie. I mean, you and I had a really good conversation about this earlier today, the news and stuff. But do you guys think it's possible that we are over-informed, like beyond our ability to cope with that information? I mean, I just thought about like what you said. I mean, like we're getting information overload. I mean, yeah, why do we need to know about what's going on the other side of the world unless it's coming this way? I mean, if we, now if you can seek that out, say you have family there and you want to check in on them or something, but I mean, and obviously, I don't mean this to be like insensitive. Like, of course I have compassion for every human being, every living organism on this planet, but again, what can we do about that? And is that information going to negatively impact our day-to-day life and cause, basically it's a spread of chaos and a spread of fear and a spread of sadness? I mean,
well, sure. And like the physical effects, you talked about the immune function, but look at what it does to anxiety, depression, cognitive function. Yeah. I mean, you're swimming against the tide. It's stress. You're bombarding yourself with stress. You're releasing stress hormones. You're literally initiating unhealthy processes in your body when you indulge in this stuff.
And when you release those hormones, what happens is your brain senses it's like danger, Will Robinson, danger. I mean that's what your brain says, and so it shuts down your conscious brain. So now you're only running subconscious programs. And then to the audience out there, they're like, oh, that means, you're only really concerned about breathing, digesting food, and running those things. Consciously, you're not being able to make decisions. So put that into context. I got a patient who, kind of regular guy, trying to raise two kids, a wife and teenagers. And he was stressed out, and he was watching the news all day long, and he's like, I want to stay informed so I can protect my family. And I said, how things going? He goes, oh my gosh, my kids are, rough and this and that. And ended up his 13-year-old son was addicted to pornography. His 16-year-old daughter was pregnant and contemplating an abortion. And I said to him, I go, what? I'm not judging you. I said, but while you're trying to be informed about what's happening in Bosnia, you might want to shut the TV off.
And deal with what's in your...
this gets me choked up. Because I had teenage boy and a teenage girl, and now they're married, and it's awesome. But I'm thinking, who can... I'm sad. We'll pray for people in Bosnia. But spend some time with your 13-year-old boy.
Yeah.
Spend some time with your 16-year-old daughter.
Take care of your business, your family. I mean, that's your business. Like,
focus on them. And because they're saturated with this stuff, their brain is only concerned about breathing, about digesting food. They're not consciously going, you know what? I got to check in with my 13-year-old boy. He's going through puberty right now.
Yeah.
And you're young, but when we were young, we didn't have to go through the Kroger checkout line, and we saw, Sports Illustrated, which used to have sports in it. There were it just, you can't go through the Kroger checkout line without seeing something. These 13-year-old boys have to see that stuff. And the 13-year-old, the 16-year-old daughter, she got into trouble. She needs to have somebody to talk to, and she's contemplating all this stuff, and it's like, Dad, wake up.
Meanwhile,
get away from the news.
So what's happened in these situations is there's an addictive component to the information. So people literally get addicted to the storylines that they're following and the reading the comments on the social media post. Like, there's a dopamine physical biochemical addiction that occurs, and it gets to the point to where people are more driven to look at their phones than to talk to people that are at the table with them.
I know. That is very sad.
Even, I was thinking about this, even when it hits closer to home. So, before we had, all social media, and cell phones and all this thing. Say you had, a grandmother who lived in Colorado and a grandmother that lives in California. And, both of them sort of pass away within sort of like weeks of each other. So you're, in today's age, you're going to find out about both of those deaths immediately.
Instantly.
As soon as it happens. 50, 60 years ago, you actually sort of had the grace of a period of time in between to sort of grieve, the death of each of those grandmothers. And that's kind of important. And now, now you just get bombarded with things instantly. You have, it's grief after grief, layered on top of each other. I mean, it's kind of crazy that we deal with that today.
Yeah. No wonder why people are taking so many antidepressants.
Yeah, it's and the thing is within our control. You just find the off switch.
Yeah.
And let's face it, the news has changed. It's not there to inform us. I don't care what political end of the political spectrum you're on, whatever you're watching, they have an agenda, and it is an attempt to conform you, to shape your thinking, and to have you follow a storyline that has a predetermined narrative. I mean, that's where we've gotten. So it's, you're a pawn in somebody else's chess game. So why bother? But anyway, so let's talk about so what happens if you turn off the media, right? If you do a detox, like what are some things that are going to happen? You're going to be less distracted. You're going to actually notice things that are happening around you in your own world. I did this for a couple of days, and I actually talked to my family, and they seem like nice people.
Yeah. Did you have to introduce yourself?
Well, yeah, and I had to get them to turn their phones off too. So that was awkward. After we fought about that for an hour,
Hey, Dad.
we hung out, and it was pretty cool.
Can I text you, Dad?
Right.
This is a little awkward. I gotta look at you.
Exactly. So, and then now I've got all this extra time, and I'm reading books. And when you read books, you're thinking at a whole different level. When you read books, if you need an alternate activity of the news, read books. That's a great thing to do. It's pretty cool.
Well, it's curated information, right?
Well, yeah, but it's beyond that. It's something like you engage it in a different way, and it's a lot.
Sure.
It's a deeper
critical thinking.
Well,
right?
it
engages that.
You're using parts of your brain that are not otherwise commonly accessed.
You're not just using that entertainment center.
Right. Distraction.
You want to be entertained.
Right.
Whether it's good or bad, it doesn't matter. We want to be entertained.
It's a trough. I mean, media is a trough of information, and it's like the fast food
Oh,
information.
the news
Like,
is
it's
it's junk
the
food
bad
for your
stuff.
mind, is what it is,
Yeah.
and your brain is starving. Otherwise.
And the junk food places around town, good times, bad times, economic crashes, whatever, they still do great.
Oh yeah,
So we're addicted to the junk food.
we're addicted to addiction.
And I know you've got, to wrap this up and everything, but because I go to, until COVID, I go to India once a year and usually there for about 3 weeks. And for the first week, because we're in some remote places, in small villages, and there's no internet connection. And so it's the first week I'm kind of detoxing because I want to look at my phone, and then you can't. So the second week you kind of start, doing without it. The third week it's super freeing, and you start realizing. And I remember and the time is different. So I'm an American. Time. What time are we supposed to meet tomorrow morning? Because we do medical camps. 9 a.m. Okay, so I'm there at 8:45. And then they start flowing in about 9:30, and I'm sitting there going, "Are we still doing the 9 a.m. thing?" And they're like, "Oh, well, no, we'll get to it. It's just a different pace." And I was in the process of separation and all that kind of stuff, with my marriage. And one of the Indian guys was there. He saw that on my face, and he came alongside me, put his arm around me, and he said, "Let's go for a walk." And I was like, "Well, we're supposed. It's almost 10 o'clock. We're supposed to do 9 a.m. thing." He goes, "They'll wait for us." And he took me on a walk for an hour, and he listened to me. And when we came back, we went, and you know what? There was a ton of people waiting on us, but they were all still there.
Yeah.
And we serviced all of them, but it really taught me so much. It was like, the relation. And that particular gentleman in India, I probably correspond with him once a week.
Oh, right.
That's so cool.
And we're when he comes over to the U.S., he stays at my house for a week.
That's awesome.
And it's, it's relationship. And I love going there because it detoxes me. And I come back, and usually for the first few weeks, I'm like, I'm not looking at my cell phone ever again. And then then I have to, but it feels good. Yeah. Really good.
So I've been reading a little bit about relationships and their effects on health and longevity, and I think that would be a great topic for a future podcast.
That's
episode.
amazing.
So maybe that's what we'll explore. So,
okay.
But now we're going to turn off the news.
Okay.
And I'm going to detox for the next couple weeks. So last week we talked about stretching. You've been stretching all week, right? Yeah. Still stretching?
Can you touch your toes yet?
I can.
Okay. Yeah.
So I did this morning.
Should we do that on camera sometime?
Yeah, we should test that out.
Sure.
Yeah.
We can do it right now.
I believe you.
We'll take your word for it. And so now we're gonna. So in addition to stretching, we're gonna cut off the news and see what effect that has. This is my journal. I'm gonna start making notes and
see what your blood pressure does.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Bet it goes down.
Yeah, that would be good.
Stacking good habits.
That's right. We're gonna layer in some good habits. So, because hey, we're human too, and we have bad habits. Hey, I watch way too much news. Yeah. I thumb through my phone way too often. I don't want to be a hypocrite here. I just know that this is a problem and it's bugging me.
It is.
And so I'm going to do something to fix it. Yeah. And I hope you guys consider doing it too.
Definitely.
Until then, I guess I'll do the closeout. You like closeouts, right?
Yes.
I'm Charlie with Nature's Outlet. You're Dr. Pat.
I'm Pat.
With Kennedy Health and Wellness.
That's what he said.
Yep. In Salem. Nutrition Geek, John Rigdon. Yeah. Also eye candy for certain people. And
he was 9 in ninth grade.
Ninth grade. For
he's a September 11th.
He's a Ute. Just a kid.
I think I was in elementary school. What were you doing?
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah. Something like that.
Something like that.
For about 12 years in a row. So, all right. So this is our most recent episode of The Doctor Within, where the doctor in here
is better than the media out there.
Darn right.
Yeah.
Thank you.